Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us for this Facebook Live fundraiser. We're really happy to have you. I know many of you are fasting, and the last few days are going to be longer than they have been. So we're delighted that you've joined us, and we have an exciting program for you, lined up for you. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Nisa. I am the Executive Director of the Canadian Council of Muslim Women. And I'm here with our President, Nina Karachi Khalid, and you'll meet the rest of the team as well very, very soon. Let me see. I think I just lost my stream here. So why is CCMW doing this fundraiser in support of Nisa Homes? What I'm excited to tell you is that we are doing this because we wanted to find an organization that we could support during this very important month that works directly with Canadian Muslim women and helps them in a very real way. So once again, on behalf of the Canadian Council of Muslim Women, I welcome you all to our Facebook Live session in support of our Ramadan fundraiser to support Nisa Homes. CCMW is a national not-for-profit organization committed to the equality, equity, and empowerment of Canadian Muslim women and girls. We are thrilled with the opportunity to partner with Nisa Homes on our Ramadan fundraising campaign titled Keep Our Sisters Safe. Nisa Homes is a non-government, not-for-profit charitable organization that provides a safe haven and support services to women, children, and families who are experiencing homelessness and or domestic and family violence, poverty, or seeking asylum. 50% of Nisa Homes clients are women fleeing ultimate partner violence, and 48% are children under 14. We all know that the pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on women, especially racialized women. This makes the work of Nisa Homes all the more important. They've received more than 6,000 calls for assistance to date and have sheltered over 800 women so far. They have 3,000 plus remote clients, as well as 7 homes across Canada. With the surge in domestic violence and intimate partner violence during the pandemic, the need for their services has increased. The current housing crisis across Canada increases the need for safe housing for women. Our campaign will help Nisa Homes sustain their current services, as well as help them open more homes across Canada. They plan to open 1 more home in Montreal later this year and others in Halifax and Winnipeg next year. So let me share some campaign details with you. We launched our campaign titled Keep Our Sisters Safe this Ramadan on April 10th and will continue until May 23rd. We initially started with a modest goal of $5,000 and have raised more than 15,000 so far and counting. We have now raised our goal to 20,000 due to the overwhelming support we have received so far. We know that Ramadan is a month of giving and hope you can help keep our sisters safe this Ramadan. Tax receipts will be issued to donors. So how can you donate? Well, you can go online to the Launch Good website. I think we're going to share the website with you in the Facebook messages. It's www.launchgood.com/keepoursisterssafe. You can also e-transfer money to info@nisahomes.com, or you can pay by check payable to Nisa Homes, mailed to 115 Matheson Boulevard West, Unit 214, Mississauga, Ontario, L5R3L1. So now I'm going to pass the mic over to Nina, and she's going to share more information with you. Nina?
Thanks, Nusat. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for taking time out of your afternoon to be with us today. These blessed last few days of Ramadan are filled with fasting and prayer and reading Quran. And during this month, we're also reminded of the importance of charity in Islam. We know the positive impact of our charity on the lives of those who are needy. But what we sometimes forget is the blessings that are bestowed on those who are generous with their wealth, with their knowledge, with their time, and of course, their compassion. We are taught that charity purifies our wealth. We're also taught that even giving half of a date in charity can save our souls. May God have mercy on us and may He forgive us for our shortcomings. It's been said that when a person dies, they wish to return to this world to perform more charitable acts. The person doesn't ask to return to this world to perform Hajj or the pilgrimage, or to pray more, or even to fast more days. Even the smallest act of charity can be the thing that guarantees us a place in heaven for the rest of eternity. I came across a wonderful quote from the late Audrey Hepburn, and she said, "Nothing is more important than empathy for another human being's suffering. Nothing. Not a career, not wealth, not intelligence, and certainly not status. We have to feel for one another if we're going to survive with dignity." I'll continue with that thought and say that people whose dignity has been taken away by someone else or simply by their circumstances, they don't heal all by themselves. Of course, they heal by the will of the Almighty God, but they also heal when their wounds are tended to by fellow human beings, when their personal agency is restored, when they feel seen and heard, when their hurt is acknowledged and addressed. And that brings me to Nisa Homes. Nisa Homes is a safe haven for women experiencing domestic violence, poverty, or homelessness. Not only do they aim to provide a safe, secure, and confidential space for women and children, but they also provide a space for them to heal and to flourish. With CCMW's commitment towards equality, equity, and empowerment of Canadian Muslim women and girls, we wanted to use this campaign as an opportunity to support an organization that is emotionally, psychologically, physically, and spiritually healing our sisters. So in addition to raising funds to support Nisa Homes, we're hosting live sessions to have a chance to chat with representatives from Nisa Homes and learn more about the amazing work that they do. Today is our last live session. Our live session today focuses on the increase in domestic violence and the need for shelter, especially due to the current COVID situation. A statistic from the Canadian Women's Foundation states that 300 women and children are turned away from shelters on any given night in Canada because they're full. Another one states that on any average night in Canada, more than 6,000 women and children stay in shelters because it's not safe for them at home. To learn more about shelters, the transitional housing system, and the conditions women are facing in Canada that bring them to these homes, we have Yasmin and Zainab from Nisa Homes and Lise, the Executive Director of Women's Shelters Canada. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like each one of you to tell us a bit about yourselves and the work that you do. Yasmin, why don't you start? I hope that I'm pronouncing your name correct. Is it Yasmin or Yasmin?
No, Yasmin, that's perfect.
Yasmin, why don't you start and tell us a bit about yourself and the work that you do at Nisa Homes?
Sure, thank you so much. And thank you to the Canadian Council of Muslim Women for choosing us as their campaign for this Ramadan. And I think you guys have been doing an incredible job with raising awareness, raising funds, and spreading the word. I think, more than just raising funds, it's spreading the word and making sure that, someone who might need this resource or the service knows that it's available to them. So in terms of, a little bit about me, I'm the national manager for Nisa Homes. So on any given day, I oversee the homes that we currently have and oversee our expansion and our work across Canada. I am currently on maternity leave, so I'm trying to do a bit of both and just trying to help where I can. But it's just it's an important cause to me, so I find it hard to stay away. And just to kind of give some background, I've been in all levels at Nisa Homes. I started off as a volunteer and then went on to be a caseworker and a house manager and then an operations manager. And here I am now. And it's been an incredible journey where we can see firsthand the change and the difference it makes in women's lives. And I think we'll talk more about this later, but there's so much potential when it comes to women. You know, a little bit goes so far. So that's me.
Wow, wonderful. Zainab, how about you? Can you please tell us a bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's such a pleasure and honor actually to be here today. And thank you very much for Canadian Muslim Women for this initiative and for increasing and spreading awareness. It's much, much needed. Your work is much valued actually. So I've joined Nisa Home, I think 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Yasmin, you can correct me, but I'm pretty sure it was 3 years ago. I've also started as a caseworker. I am actually now the operation manager for the house located in BC, Vancouver, Surrey. Um, yeah, so basically my role here is to, support the caseworkers, overseeing the programs here, like the actual in-house programs, as well as our remote program, which we actually started last year due to the pandemic. We'll explain about it later on, inshallah. And just making sure, the house is running, building, connections with the community partners, and most importantly, making sure that, people in the community know about the service, and we're reaching out to as many women in our community as possible, and yeah, making sure that the service is available to all those who actually need it. So alhamdulillah, like it's a bit of everything, I guess, but it's working, and I guess the reason why I'm still working, till this day here, is because I truly believe in the work we're doing, and I truly believe like we're filling a gap. So we always, like, even before starting, this work, I've always been very, very interested in, working with women in my community, and just making sure that we are actually doing the work. We're actually addressing, the gaps, and Nisa Home provided that, opportunity, and that's why I'm still, doing it till this day.
Wonderful. Thank you, Zainab. Hello, Lise. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. So I'm Lise Martin, and I am the Executive Director of Women's Shelters Canada. And it's nice to see you, Yasmin. We actually talked just a few weeks before you went on maternity leave. So nice to see you now. Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this important event. Women's Shelters Canada is a national nonprofit organization that works with the 600 plus shelters, violence against women shelters across the country. And, how we describe our work in one sentence is that shelters support the women and children fleeing violence, and we support the shelters. And one of the many things we do is we have Sheltersafe.ca, and that is a separate website from our organizational website, but it's a clickable map of shelters across the country. And I think most of the Nisa homes are on, but I was thinking we need to connect because you're growing actually quite fast. And so maybe the more recent ones are not there, but basically, you can search it. You go into your province and it can be searched by postal code, by city, and it includes the information on the shelter, their 24/7 phone number, whether or not the shelter offers children's programming on site or off site, if they have any accommodations for pets, because this is often an issue. So on-site, off-site, and if the shelter is accessible for people with limited mobility. And there are three key messages we want to convey through Sheltersafe.ca, and that is that it's not your fault. It is never your fault. The violence that someone is living is never their fault. That help is available 24/7, and it's free of charge, and that you don't need to stay in a shelter to access their services. And I think you mentioned some of the sort of external services that you provide, but a lot of people don't realize that a shelter can provide, really life-saving and key services. Because what I often say is, you may have a sister or an aunt or a good friend that can house you, but you shouldn't expect that person to be able to provide you all the supports you need. And so you should never hesitate to reach out to a shelter.
Thank you very much, Lise. It's a good point. So that was Sheltersafe.ca?
Yes.
Got it. So hopefully we can put that in the chat. Now I'd like to ask Yasmin and Zainab. Well, Yasmin first. Can you tell me about the history of Nisa Homes, and why did you choose to work for Nisa Homes?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of, when we started in 2015, we are, kind of give some more background, but we're a project of an organization called the National Zakat Foundation. And what they do is they collect zakat locally in Canada and distribute it to people in need in Canada. And what zakat is it's basically like a charity that every Muslim has to give on their savings for a year, and just to kind of help those in need in their community. So what they found was that once they had started, they were finding a lot of women were applying to get that financial assistance, especially single mothers, widows, basically women that were on their own, and they were finding them applying over and over again. And so they started to look, okay, well, how can we be more proactive in assisting them, and how can we have more long-term results, and rather than just giving them, a couple $100s every month and seeing that it's not really making that much of a difference. So they started doing research. We did a feasibility study, and we looked into different programs that are offered to women and children, different ways of supporting women long-term. And that's kind of when the concept of a transitional home came up, and we looked into other transitional homes in Ontario and across Canada, looked at how they're doing it and looked at the results. And that's when we realized that, this might be the answer to that support that's needed. And couple of months later, we ended up taking the plunge and renting out a place in I believe the first one was in Ontario, and then closely after was the one in BC a couple of months later. And yeah, from there it's grown exponentially. We now have the 7 almost, well, we just secured a location in Montreal, so pretty much 8 homes now, from that small concept of being more proactive in supporting these women and children.
I guess these are homes that are just like a regular family home in a neighborhood, and they would be probably near a bus route. And
Exactly. So yeah, from the outside, you wouldn't tell that, this is a transitional home or anything. We try to keep it normal looking from the outside. The address is confidential, so we don't share these addresses with anyone. Even people within our team who don't come to the homes, they don't know the addresses. So we just try to maintain that safety through that confidentiality. But yeah, it's a regular home. We'll have like bedrooms where every woman and child gets their own bedroom, and then they have the shared facilities in the home. They have the kitchen, the dining room. We have a play area for children. We have, some homes have like a study space and an office space, living room, backyard, that kind of thing. And it's just meant to allow them to live independently. So, our staff is there every day, but we're not there 24/7. So we encourage them to cook and clean for themselves and, have that independent lifestyle with our support. So we're there every day, the counselors, the caseworkers, the staff, they're there to support them every day, but also give them that feeling of having their own place.
Wonderful. And Zainab, what is the history for you with Nisa Homes, and why did you choose to work for this organization?
Yeah, sure. I think I kind of answered this briefly earlier. Again, like I've always been interested in working with women in the community. Before that, I used to work with refugees and immigrants in our community in the capacity of support worker. And I've always, noticed there are many of them, facing DV, facing domestic violence, but there's so many misconceptions about actually seeking support and the resources available out there. And even like myself, I was hesitant referring them because they were like, well, have you actually been to that place? Do you actually know if they're like culturally sensitive or whatever it is? You know what I mean? And so when this opportunity presented itself, I was like, well, that's actually I cannot miss that chance. Again, because I've seen huge need in the community. And so that's why I decided like to, to join. And honestly, like, I think, unfortunately, it's one of those service that you don't want to like grow, but because, it's just proved there's like, a lot of like gap, I mean, huge gap in our community or like, in the society. But like, at the same time, I'm very like grateful and thankful that, Nisa Home does exist, because it's also like, filling gap. It's also like providing a very like safe space for women, and even like, the linguistic and cultural like aspect of it. And just like the fact, I mean, yes, we do speak, different languages, of course, like, the workers here, but we sometimes get clients that none of us speak their languages, right? But I think there's like, there's this trust and comfort level that at least maybe like, um, it's very homey, it's very like, it's also very culturally competent. So like, I think that also like make them feel even safer. And yeah, it's, as I mentioned earlier, like it's been 3 years, and I think again, unfortunately, I'm seeing like increase in needs, especially since I'm not quite sure if you're gonna ask this later, but like since the pandemic hit, it's like the need did not even triple, but like, I don't know, like by 5 times or even more, which is again unfortunate. But like, it's also good that they know that, there's this service they can reach out. I'm gonna speak like more later on about like our remote services, but like, just to give you an idea, just like in the Surrey location, the BC location alone, we have more than, I think, 24 remote clients, and these are like remote clients, are not the in-house clients. So yeah, the needs is there. It's really big, and I think that's why this work is very important, and it is very, very crucial that it continue to exist to, support those who are in need of this service.
Zainab, those remote clients, do you always do that service, or it just started after COVID?
It was, I guess we can explain that better, but it was very informal. Okay, so basically, here for our clients, in-house clients, after they move out, we do have like a follow-up plan, basically, where we support them from 3 to 6 months, right? But these are for like the in-house clients after, they move out. What is different about the remote service that we started in last year after the pandemic hit is that now it's not just like for those who have actually been living or accessing the, physically accessing the transition home. It's basically for any woman who still needing support, but can't really necessarily come to the transition home due to many reasons. The first main reason actually is because of, fear of exposure, fear of the pandemic. So they don't want to actually come leave their, their homes, and they prefer to like stay in that environment rather than leaving and maybe like, being at risk of, uh, getting, the COVID basically, or like putting their kids at risk, because it's communal living, right? Although we assure them it's, we take our precautions, it's safe, but there's that fear, obviously. There is also like another few women who basically the abusers or like their partners left the home. So they're still living there, but obviously they have no resources, no support, nothing, not even financial means, no connection. So they need this service and they need that support. So they don't want to leave their house. They're okay with their staying right now because their partners left, but they have absolutely no support. So that is what is kind of like new with our remote service. In the past, it was just like for those who already existing, using the service. Sorry, I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it makes sense. It's interesting, like you have to pivot, like everybody, I guess, this year. Lise, what do you find are the main issues women are facing that make them seek shelter? And how is Women Shelters Canada addressing these issues? What are the main issues women are facing?
Well, I mean, we work specifically with shelters that provide services to women fleeing violence, and so I think, violence comes in many forms, and for many people, they will, their mind quickly goes to physical violence and bruises on a woman's body and whatnot. But violence is much broader than that, and it really is about, it's a question of power and control, and there could be financial abuse, abuse linked to one's faith, in terms of really narrowing the person's connections and isolating the person and making the person feel that she's worthless. And so this has been exacerbated for sure by COVID because, a person, our networks have shrunk dramatically. And as well in terms of, women being able to reach out. So, we can't take for granted that everyone, first of all, has a computer or a smartphone. And so a lot of people were reliant on public services. So in community centers and libraries, and all of these places have shut down for most of the last 14 months.
Right.
So this has been very challenging for women fleeing violence. And so the whole question of is often referred to as coercive control. So that control that that a partner will exert on the person, making them, really weakening them and their self-esteem, and obviously, having this violence, which is unacceptable on all fronts, and often impacting their children as well.
Right. Yeah, sort of a perfect storm, isn't it? COVID just, enhanced or exacerbated the isolation that we all feel, but these women are in a terrible situation. Thank you, Lise. Now, my last question to all of you, and we'll start with Yasmin again. Do you have one story of a client that has stuck with you? I'm sure you have many stories in your head, but one in particular.
Yeah, I mean, there are many stories, and it's difficult to pick one out because I feel like there's trends in all of these, like all the women that I've worked with. I mentioned earlier, I've seen so much resilience and so much strength with all these women. They take a little bit and they go so far with it. And I'll give my favorite story. I think many people might have heard this, but it really is like one that touches me. And this was back when I was a caseworker in BC, actually. And I got a call from the police in the middle of the night almost that they have a mom with 8 children out on the street. It was BC, so it was raining. Surprise, surprise. And they basically did not speak English. They had nowhere to go, and they were all crying on the side of the street. And so I told them to come over to the home for sure. And I met them there. And I remember we were still new at that time, and we didn't even have extra clothes to give them. And we had to take different items of clothing, put them in the dryer, and then give them the other items. And it was just such a chaotic moment with 8 children. I mean, I was just in shock. And they didn't speak English. And literally it was their first day in Canada. They had actually come to Canada through the US on foot. They crossed the US-Canada border on foot and came to Canada because their friends and family had told them, there's Trudeau, you have to come to Canada. He's so much better than Trump. And, so all they had in mind was just get to Canada and then, we'll be safe there. And so, when she came and they got settled, we started working on things, getting her papers and all that stuff. And we started realizing that she was an amazing, amazing cook. And she made the most incredible food. I gained so much weight while I was there. Her kids refused to eat unless I sat and ate with them. Aww. So it was a very interesting time. But we decided, okay, you know what? She's got this skill. Chances are she's not going to be able to find a job right now or anytime soon. And why don't we help her start a catering business? And so we started with something small where we were making just Ramadan packages, and we sold out in less than a day. And it did so well, and she ended up starting getting to get orders from different people, and eventually she was able to move out into someone's basement apartment that they rented out to her for a cheaper cheaper cost. And, things settled and she was okay, and we kind of lost touch. And then I think it was a year later, a friend of mine actually messaged me saying, you know what, I think this person was someone that you worked with, and she just moved across the street from us. She rented out a whole house by herself. She bought a car by herself. Her kids and her now have their own place. All of that through the catering business that she started, which was doing phenomenally well. She was able to support herself and her children. She was able to rent out a whole house and buy a car. To me, that if that's not what success looks like, I don't know what is. And I'm in touch with her now. I got back in touch, and I remember we tried to get her to cater one of our events, and she was fully booked. So it was just phenomenal to see that transformation from the day they came to how successful they are now. It's incredible to see. I truly believe that women are powerful beyond measure, and they are capable of doing so much if they're given that opportunity. And the women that we work with, they proved that to us day in and day out.
Wow, wonderful. And her children, what an example she set for them. Yeah, mothers, on the heels of Mother's Day, we see what mothers will not do and what they will do. Zainab, do you have one story that you can relate and tell us about that
I
sticks
have
with
many. It's just so hard to limit it and narrow it down to one. Um, but since I can only share one, I'll just share like the most recent one, because it's honestly like very, very, very inspiring. So there is this lady. She's like my mother age, and she had like faced abuse her entire life, all form of abuse, like physical, emotional, verbal, spiritual, you name it. And then so she was actually living in a different province, and so she had to move to BC, because her abuser kind of located her in that province. So, and she was taking care of her two granddaughters. So she came here with absolutely no resources, nothing. So she just, landed, in the airport, and she was not sure what to do. And someone, at the airport, I think one of the people that work there, kind of heard her story, and they were like, well, there is, we can call this transition home. And she did not know nothing. She was just waiting with her luggage and her two granddaughters, and she called Nisa home. We did the intake right away. And then we because of COVID and traveling, we booked her like a hotel. She stayed there for a few days, and then she moved to Nisa home. And during the time she was staying here, she was very like, it's amazing. Despite what she faced, she was like very resilient. She was very, very strong and very determined to like do everything that takes to be safe and provide for her granddaughters and taking care of her granddaughters. And it was like just beyond phenomenal. Obviously, like, she's very skilled at cooking, and so she started like a very small catering business. But what is really, really amazing is that she decided to go back to school and actually like get into the healthcare sector. And she said, like, I think this would provide me like a more stable job. I would actually provide better for my granddaughters. And we were actually able to apply for a grant for her, and she got that grant for that specific program, healthcare, I think healthcare worker. And she got the grant, and she'll be starting very soon, attending the program basically. And I think that's just like very, very inspiring, because it shows that she till this day, obviously, like, healing is a life journey. And yes, she is safe thankfully now, but we don't know what could happen next. So healing is a life journey, but despite of all of that, she is very determined and very, very like keen on reaching her goals and like thrive and basically starting again. And I think one of the things that I've learned uh, from this experience, when I first started at the very beginning, I came with the attitude, yeah, I'm gonna like empower women, yeah, but no, absolutely not. I was the one, honestly, that I felt very empowered by what I've witnessed. And I feel like any, any woman work in this sector is extremely privileged to, be part of this process and be part of this journey and witnessing it, because it's something that's again very, very empowering. And I think these like now, and across the years, I start having a lot like these realizations that I'm not here to empower women. I think I am the one who got really empowered and inspired by all what I've witnessed so far.
That's beautiful. I love that story, Zainab, too. Lise, do you have any one story that you remember you want to tell us about?
I don't have a story because I don't work at that individual level. And so, we work at the pan-Canadian level. And both of your stories are amazing, and just such a testimony to the work that you do, that shelters do across the country. And I don't want to put a damper, but I'll just say that, like, part of me is, oh wow, like I have goosebumps listening to your stories. But on the other hand, I know that there's still so many women that are falling through the cracks, so many women that we have to turn away because we don't have enough space. And so that's my motivation to continue. And, part of my work on the pan-Canadian level has been to really advocate for a national action plan on gender-based violence in Canada. And again, so that quick talk about it is, we say, the levels of services and protection available to women should not depend on their postal codes. And too often that's the case in Canada. So I'll leave it at that.
Excellent point, Lise. Yeah. Well, I'm going to now pass the mic back to Nuzhat, who is going to take questions from the audience. I guess we have a number of questions waiting. Nuzhat, you just have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Yes, I'm seeing them in the live. So I've got a few questions here in the comments on the Facebook page. So I'm going to ask the first question, which is, what are the causes of this issue? So I guess the causes for gender-based violence and domestic violence that you're seeing. I guess that when you do your intake and your triage, you probably learn from the women what is causing the violence in their homes or elsewhere. Can any of you address that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to say that there's one cause. I can talk a bit about generally. I think, unfortunately, there is a lot of I don't want to say. I think that a lot of the cause goes back to the perception society has around women and around, the roles that women versus men play, especially in relationships. It kind of goes beyond what's acceptable for certain people and what's not. Just to take a step further than that, it really comes down to control, as Lise had mentioned earlier, control and coercive control, and just the definition of what intimate partner violence is, for example, is that it's the use of power and control by one partner over another partner. So it comes down to that understanding of what one partner believes that they have the right to control and to dominate and to exert their power over another partner. And that's done through different forms of abuse, such as emotional, verbal, psychological, sexual, spiritual, physical, of course. So all these different types of abuse are different ways of presenting that expectation that one partner has control and dominance over another, and they're allowed to do this because they're more powerful and they want to exert that power and control. So I think it's hard to, sorry, I meant to say it's hard to pinpoint it. Every relationship is different and every form of abuse is different and every experience is different. But I think when you break it down, it usually comes down to that understanding of what's acceptable and not acceptable in a relationship when it comes to power and control.
Thank you. That's helpful. So I have another question here, and Actually, there's no easy answer to this one. So this person is saying, I'm wondering about some kind of legislation to force men to leave the home rather than the women and the kids. How can we work on this? Why do women have to choose between poverty and abuse? Actually, this is an interesting way of looking at the issue. Women are escaping; they're leaving the scene because of their experience. But I guess the question is there some way of actually forcing the man to leave rather than the women and children? Who wants to answer that question?
I can start an answer if you want.
Sure, Lise.
I mean, so this question comes up actually regularly, and it's definitely something that we need to do further reflection on. One of the main reasons is around safety. And so we know like 2021 has been a really difficult year. It may have gone higher, but to the last of my knowledge, there were 7 femicides so far in 2021 in BC and 10 in Quebec. So that's 17 just in those 2 provinces. So that is one of the reasons, because a big part of the shelters is providing that safety. So that's one piece, but there is a shelter actually in Alberta, and it's in a rural, it's not in Calgary or Edmonton, it's in a smaller setting in Alberta, and they have set up a separate program. And I think that's very important, because it's not either or, it's an addition to what they're doing. And so they're piloting this where they've set up a new home, and it will be a program men will apply. So men, if they go there, it's because they want to go there. And they want to change. And the idea is that they would stay at that home for about 2 months, I think. And then they would be followed for another year. And so they're really just at the point of starting. And yeah.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
Can I just add to that?
Sure, Yasmin, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal idea, and I'd love to learn more about that shelter, because at least even in our when we were doing the National Action Plan, the surveys and the studies, the focus groups that we had done, this came up quite often, that the concept of, instead of removing the woman and having her have to restart her life and figure everything out from scratch, why are we not removing the men and providing shelters for the men, essentially for them to restart everything? But I think, like you said, it comes back to safety, that at the end of the day, especially if the partner is abusive, they know where they live. And I believe that studies have shown that the most dangerous time for many women is after they leave a relationship, not even during the time that they're in that relationship. So it does come to that point of safety. And in terms of that poverty and abuse, that's a really good point, because a lot of women that choose to leave, they are making that decision between living in poverty or living in abuse. And it's really unfortunate that we just don't have the systems in place, and there's so many gaps when it comes to, like Lise mentioned earlier, so many women are falling between the cracks because our subsidized housing system, there's enormous wait lists across the country. All our homes, they've seen that subsidized housing has 8+ years wait list, which is ridiculous for anyone that's trying to find affordable housing. The rental market is not affordable. It's we're finding bedrooms in homes, like a bedroom, not even with their own private bathroom, for $600-700. That's more than the cost. That's more than they get from welfare. And if they were to work, then they're making that choice between supporting their children and taking care of their children, and trying to find daycare that's affordable, trying to find daycare spots in daycare right now. All these obstacles are just making it impossible for women to number one, leave. They have to think about all these things, right? As a mom, like the mom I mentioned, that has 8 children, how is she supposed to go work? Who's going to take care of her 8 children? She has no family. She has no friends. Daycare is, more expensive. A lot of times, basically all the money you're making is going into daycare. So it's there's so many obstacles that prevent women from leaving. And also once they leave, it does keep them in this cycle of poverty, unfortunately, which not only affects them, but affects their children and affects, it's a cycle that just keeps on going, unfortunately.
That's right. And it always goes back to that power and control issue, because the men, have the power and they do control the families, and the woman really doesn't have that ability to take any actions against them. There's another question here, and actually, it's very interesting. What about the issue of families and communities not believing? I guess it means not believing the women, because this happens a lot, where the woman is saying, "This is what's happening to me in my home." Families are usually saying, "No, no, no, stay with your husband for the sake of the kids. It's really important. Stay with them." And of course, in our communities, like any other community, leaving your home is, considered taboo and really challenging. So how do we deal with these disbelieving families and communities?
Go ahead, Zainab. I have a lot to say, but you can go ahead.
I mean, yes, it's, we all know this is quite harmful. And if anything, it's just like gaslighting the victim here and basically not believing her. And really, she feels like, she is stuck in this situation because no one is actually validating her experience, especially when her partner is super charming, amazing in the community, does a lot of work, might actually be super involved. So, and we've actually seen that, we've seen that he's like doing great work in the community, very established, has great career. And so like when she actually come forward and tell those who are around her, this is what he's doing, no way, like, he can't be like, bad, like, abusive husband, because we've seen him in the community. But what people don't understand is that just because like your experience with that, partner, like with that, person is not the same as, the victim experience, obviously, with him. So I think part of what Nisa Home is trying to do, maybe not like on the larger scale, but like we're, starting, to do, is that we are trying to have this awareness. And I think like Yasmin can talk more about this, but like on the social media, especially, there's a lot of like, content in terms of like the experience of, the victims, and how you can actually talk to someone who's approaching you and who's actually telling you about what she's experiencing, and what are like, the signs of, a person that you can see, like, and then you can notice right away, she could actually be in an abusive relationship. So I think like the content on social media is doing this awareness part. On the other hand, like, even as the workers here, like, actual homes, we're talking, to, our community, like, people in the community, like, family, friends. We've done like a few mini workshops for service providers, for even like, we try to even reach out, like, to settlement workers, even like, we try to even reach out to imams, which is basically, some of the women who are abused reach out to, imams and be like, this is my experience. So I think like when it comes to that, it's all about like awareness and how you can actually understand a person could be an amazing father, could be like very, very involved, like, in the community, but is still very, very abusive and toxic toward his, in the relationship. So yeah, I think, I don't know if you want to add anything else, Yasmin.
I think a big part of it is also just education. I mean, the awareness and the education. And I think, right before COVID happened, we had started looking into developing an education program for children. So for children on understanding, healthy and unhealthy relationships and boundaries and all these things. And I think it's very hard to change the opinions of people who are older and who are set in their ways. And that's where the awareness piece comes in. And we do our best to kind of get that information out there, that it's okay. There's no shame. There's no stigma associated with these things. And it happens regardless of ethnicity and regardless of religion and all that stuff. But at the same time, I do think in order for it to have long-lasting effect and long-lasting change, that education piece needs to start where we're educating our children, and hopefully in schools, we can also be educating them around, you know, recognizing the signs and understanding what healthy and unhealthy relationships are. Hopefully hoping that, you know, that eventually does lead to long-term a change in and a shift in understanding of these things, and losing that you know, these harmful mentalities that it's shameful, or that it's that, you know, women can't come home because you got divorced or anything like that.
So thank you so much, everyone. I know there are a few more well, questions or comments. One thing I wanted to tell you about is one of the questions that we have has to do with law, Muslim family law and Canadian family law. So you probably have heard that Canadian Council of Muslim Women offers a legal services coordination program. And we worked with Nisa Homes already. So we've had some referrals from them. And we referred women who contact us to Nisa Homes as well. That's a very useful program, because we're able to help women navigate two systems of laws and also really deal with very complex issues related to family situations. So I think we are going to be wrapping up. I thank you all, Yasmin, Zainab, and Lise, for joining us this evening. And thank you, Nina, for those wonderful words of wisdom that you started us off with. I'm going to now ask you, or make an appeal to you. Remember that every dollar you donate will go a long way to add a safe haven to women facing poverty, family violence, homelessness, or women who are seeking asylum. We're counting on each and every one of you to help us keep our sisters safe. So remember to donate. We are almost at our goal, but we still have a ways to go. And we've been heartened by the support we've received in this campaign. And, you know, God willing, we'll partner with you again, and we'll have mutual cooperation to help the women and families and children that are facing very, very difficult times during this pandemic. So let's keep working together and keeping our sisters safe. Thank you all so very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.